Folks, we're back. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with another episode of Veterans of Politics. 2 days in a row now. Jim. I was going to say our candidate. Our guest today is Burton
Lafleur.
Lafleur.
Burton Lafleur, a.k.a. Professor Murphy from
Burton Lafleur is a United States Marine. Hoorah!
Semper Fi!
And he's going to be talking about suicide prevention. But before we get to Burton, Jim, got anything?
One small thing I do have, because I'm sure both of you will be interested in this. Okay, PTSD is not a catchphrase, and it's not something that should be used lightly. And honestly, it's really starting to piss me off with people who haven't served in combat. Not saying that you can't suffer PTSD without serving in combat or being in the military. But I'll give you one example. I had somebody the other day at work comes up, I'm like, is everything all right? I'm like, oh, it was so busy yesterday. I swear I still have PTSD from that. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. You got PTSD because it was a busy day at work? You work in an air-conditioned building, you get paid hourly, you get 2 15-minute paid breaks, and a 30-minute lunch.
Their mocha frappuccino was heavy on the whip.
And now all of a sudden, you still have PTSD.
And don't you guys have a Starbucks in the building?
No.
You don't have a Starbucks in that one?
No, but I mean, and I hear it all the time. So there's two phrases that I hear from people all the time. It's not just at work. Either they have PTSD or they have COPD. Not COPD, but...
TBI?
No, not TBI. What's the obsessive compulsive disorder? OCD. Everybody has OCD now. Look, if you're not diagnosed by an actual physical physician with that disorder, like, it's not a catchphrase. There are people in this world that really, truly suffer from those disorders. Stop using them as a damn catchphrase. It literally pisses me off beyond belief. When people go, oh, well, no, the water bottle has to be here instead of here. Well, when I was growing up, you know what that meant to my dad? Just when you take something, put the shit back where it's supposed to go. It doesn't mean you have obsessive compulsive disorder. It just means you're actually doing what you're supposed to do. I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to take away from the guest time. But shit like that just drives me absolutely nuts.
Well, tell those people if they really want to see what PTSD looks like. I know a few people that has it.
Yeah. And it's interesting real quick. I used your line. Because I was like, okay, after I said about the lunches in an air-conditioned building, right? Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, so have you been separated from your family for over a year? Are you marching through a desert with 60 pounds of equipment on? And when you say you're tired, no one gives a shit.
60 pounds is quite light, though.
Right. I was just trying to give them, I'm like, well, why don't we just pile some weights on your back and have you walk around outside instead of in the AC for a few hours. And then when you say, I'm tired, me go, I don't give a shit. Get back up, keep going.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, I had to get that off my chest because that drives me absolutely nuts.
Do you feel better?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the victim mindset that's sweeping the country. Is if you've got something wrong with you,
right? Something
clinical, something diagnosable. Look at me, I'm special. I'm not one of the 330 other million Americans. I'm a snowflake. Trust me, I understand completely what you're talking about. It drives me about as crazy as it does you. Trust me,
Mr. Lefleur now.
Yes, sir.
Devil Dog. What was your rank?
Sergeant
Lefleur. Give us a bio.
Well, I grew up here in Las Vegas. I cut out of here when I was 18, joined the Marines Joined the Marines July of 2001 into the delayed entry program, and then 9/11 happened, and then it was, okay, well, I know where I'm going. Yeah. Joined the Marines straight out of high school, stationed over in North Carolina.
What base was that?
Started out at Cherry Point, and then MCAS New River. I know.
A lot of people like to go to Cherry Point for some reason.
I was Air Wing, whole 12 years. I'm sorry. For the grunts out there, I'm sorry. But
I was stationed to a winger unit before I departed the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay. So we're good. But no, my first 4 years were at MCAS Cherry Point with MELS 14. I was an eye-level aviation electrician, working on Harriers, Prowlers, C-130s. Okay. Did my first tour in 2000. Yeah, the big boys. Yeah. My first tour was in 2004 with 22nd MEU. Ended up going over to Afghanistan.
Isn't that a debacle?
Yeah, tell me about it. My first deployment was with Afghanistan, and now you look at what's happening over there. It's like they showed pictures of Kandahar Air Base, and I remember building the pavilion that you can watch them tearing down. So it's just kind of like you. So came back from that one, and then immediately was I did an IA billet with 2nd Marine Division Headquarters Battalion out to Iraq. Did 7 months over in Ramadi. Came back from that, re-enlisted, over to MCAS New River, working on V-22 Ospreys.
What are those?
They're the transformer-looking freaking things that go from helicopter to airplane mode.
When did those come into effect?
I want to say it was 97 that those actually hit New River, VMMT 204.
I was already gone from the Corps.
Okay. But I think those hit in 97, and then they actually went operational in 2008 or 2009, I want to say. And then did my third and final tour in 2012 with VMM 365. Okay. 2014 rolled around, the staff selection board came out. My name wasn't on it, so the Marine Corps said, "Have a nice life."
Okay.
So that's it. Came back to Vegas and went to work as a contractor.
Doing what?
Home refurbishings, actually. I work for a company called NIP Contracting, and we basically just renovate out homes.
I want to talk a little bit about Afghanistan since you were over there. What's your take on what's going on there?
To be politically correct, the biggest mistake in the Middle East the United States has made since Desert Storm.
Why was Desert Storm a mistake? Because I was out in Desert Storm.
It was the most aside from OIF, OEF, Desert Storm was like the most recent Middle East engagement that I can remember.
I think Desert Storm set the tone for everything else that's going on in the Middle East. Because we made alliances with a lot of countries we didn't make alliances before Desert Storm.
This is true.
And I remember when we were 100 miles away from the Iraqi border, the orders was to go into Iraq and get rid of the Republican guards. Yeah. And then all of a sudden they came back and says, the war is over. I'm like, shoot, the war's over. That's quick.
Yeah. Well, now I'm not saying Desert Storm was the mistake, just for a timeline. Since Desert Storm, this is the worst decision we've made as far as our relations in the Middle East go.
But the proper policy of the military is not to let your equipment get into combatants' hands.
What is it, $18 billion worth of equipment?
You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to either
bring it home
or destroy it. You're not supposed to leave it intact. And now we just militarized the Taliban. I thought that was a very intelligent move on behalf of our government, being sarcastic right now.
We just made the Taliban the most sophisticated fighting force in the Middle East today.
Yeah.
Iran, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. None of the actual nation states have anything on the Taliban with what we just gave them.
And I don't hear one newscaster wants to blame our current president.
No, they're not going to, because Biden's a geriatric old man that they don't want to hurt his feelings and give him a heart attack.
And if that was Trump, they would have been all over him.
Oh, if it was Trump, it would have been impeachment round 3.
But Trump wouldn't have done that to begin with.
No, he wouldn't have done that. He's got to that. Okay, I don't like Trump as a person. I think he's rude, obnoxious, hypocritical, loud. He's an asshole.
Womanizer.
But he had awesome policies. Mm-hmm. I mean, for 4 years,
He stood his ground.
yeah, for the 4 years before Biden, and I heard it best on the Ben Shapiro show this morning. People didn't like Trump, but our allies grudgingly respected him, and our enemies feared him.
And that's how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's how a head of state's supposed to be. Oh, you're my friend? Well, you may not like me, but you are going to respect me. Oh, you're my enemy? Good. You're going to go hide in the corner until I say we're done. That's the way it's supposed to be. Right. But with what just happened in Afghanistan, and ironically enough, Afghanistan's actually where I had my own suicide attempt. Oh. So this is a double entendre for me. Yeah. This is my first deployment into Afghanistan, Kandahar, where I made my own suicide attempt, where I had my life saved. And now 20 years later, it was a slap in the face to every veteran that's served in the last 20 years.
It's a betrayal because you got a lot of men and women that lost their lives in Afghanistan. A lot of them lost their minds. A lot of them lost parts of their body. A lot of them, their bodies still deteriorating for what took place over there. And to just give it up like that, we should at least have a military presence over there. And that's how I look at it. We should not just abandon and leave. We put too much time, sweat, blood, money over there. We should just make sure that we had a presence. And I don't know what this country is doing. It's just really disheartening to see all those people that helped us to control that country with information and weaponry and whatever they did to help us in translation, for us to just turn our backs on them. And it's the same thing we did in Iraq with the Sunnis or with the Kurds. Was the Kurds?
I think it was the Kurds.
The Kurds that got gassed by Saddam.
By Saddam.
And then we went there to help them, and then because we were supposed to go in back in 91, and then we just left.
Yeah,
we just left. Why are we always doing that? It seems that the policy of these new presidents, one president go in there and start the thing, and another president just turns their back on the whole situation. It's just discouraging.
It's because no politician today, they don't want to ante up to what the past was. You've got politicians today that want to look like an FDR or an Eisenhower without having the body count. And you can see this in Vietnam, you can see this in Korea, you can see it in Desert Storm, OIF, OEF. Every engagement the United States has been involved in since 1945 has been overridden with politics. Mm-hmm. World War II, it was, okay, Italy, Japan, Germany. You pissed us off. Now we're in it. We're in it to win. You are going to surrender. You're going to disarm. You're going to pay whatever reparations the United States or the United Nations deems appropriate. And if you don't, hey, guess what? Okay, there's nuke number one. You going to surrender? Nope. Okay, here's number two. And now today, like I said, Vietnam, Korea, OIF, OEF, you've got a bunch of politicians sitting there going, we can't get our hands dirty. If they see the body of one child on the news or on the internet, we're going to lose public support. Well, I'm sorry, excuse the language. That
already happened. There was an interpreter had his 1-year-old trampled at the airport.
Yeah.
But it's all over the news.
But that's what it is the politicians want us to, and this is where the guys like us are screwed. Politicians want us to go in and fight a clean war. Absolutely zero collateral damage.
There's
zero
no such thing as a clean war.
No, there's not. And politicians don't understand that because they're too busy sitting there. They're too busy sitting in Congress looking at their nails, wondering when the hell they're going to go get their next Starbucks and when the next campaign fund meeting is. That's where their focus is. And then they send they send three of us in there to go mop up and take care of business, and then go, well, you're not allowed to shoot back. Now, this actually happened in Iraq. Is we actually took on a full-blown engagement. It was in the middle of Ramadi. I used to know the street names, but we ended up taking fire. We were taking sniper fire from a few hundred yards away, and we actually got told you cannot return fire because that's the Army AO.
That is suicide or homicide, whoever gave that order.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here like...
See, I would have got arrested because I would have returned fire.
So real quick, okay, I want to clear one thing up. So, Burton, I just want to say this, just so the viewers and listeners, usually I don't really say anything about it, but so just so you know, and for the viewers and listeners to know, I've never served.
That's a crime of shame.
So no, but here's the thing. So this is why I'm a part of this organization. Now I have a ton of family members that were Marines, Army. My brother was in the Air Force. Like it just goes without saying that. Like one of the reasons why I do this show is because I don't understand why. So veterans like yourselves are upset about what's going on right now, but most citizens aren't, and that really drives me nuts.
Because most citizens know only what they're told by the media.
Yeah, and I don't understand that, but because I could go on all night about this subject. But I'm glad you really brought that up though, because I wanted to pivot from all the stuff going on in Afghanistan to suicide prevention, because one of the main questions I wanted to ask you is, so just a couple facts, and correct me if I'm wrong, that for actual suicide amongst veterans and actual soldiers is actually more than 4% over what the soldiers have passed in 2021 in combat. And 1.5% increase for suicide with veterans over the normal population. And with Afghanistan and everything going on there, I can't help but stop and think that, you know what, it might have something to do with individuals like yourself and individuals like Steve that, you know, have served in war zones in combat to see the crap we're seeing right now. Like, what was all your sacrifice worth? Because the politicians are literally throwing the shit away right now.
Yeah.
So how does that make you feel? And how does that make fortunately, you're able to cope with it, and Steve, but there's a lot of people that can't, and they think the only way out is to commit suicide.
Yep. And that's what the problem with that. When it comes down to Afghanistan is one of the things that I preach constantly when it comes down to suicide prevention is the first thing is purpose. Going into Afghanistan, going into Iraq, especially right after 9/11, we knew what the purpose was.
Right.
Get rid of the Taliban, bitch slap Al Qaeda, get Bin Laden, wipe out those two terrorist states in the Middle East. That's what the goal has been the last 20 years. That's what the majority of veterans have centered and built their lives around. Right. That's been our purpose in life. Is for the last 2 decades, we're gonna make the Middle East safe. We're gonna protect the United States against terrorism. We got Bin Laden. Okay, we're one for 3. Al Qaeda's still there. The Taliban's still there. So it's an ongoing purpose.
Right.
Now, President Biden comes out and goes, "Not sorry, we're giving Afghanistan back to the Taliban." You didn't just spit on every veteran that served over there and spit on the grave of every veteran that's died over there. You took away the purpose of people that have sacrificed 10, 20, more years over there. You know, everybody that has put their blood, sweat, and tears into that sacrificed time with their family, you just ripped the purpose out of their lives. And that's something, when you take away purpose from a person, and this is actually why more retirees are actually at a higher risk for suicide, is because they've got nothing keeping them going. Right. When you tear the purpose away from somebody, or you say what you did wasn't worth it, you kill all drive in that person.
And plus, under Marine law, women are subservient. I mean, they don't get educated. They don't serve in any type of capacity at all. And now the Taliban is going to take them right back to the way they were before we even arrived there.
Oh, not according to their spokesman. Not according to the Taliban spokesperson.
I'm sure we're going to believe that.
Well, yeah, I trust him.
Wow, that smell of bullshit just got stronger.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about your intro, you mentioned, and this program is about suicide prevention. You mentioned that you had your own demons in Afghanistan. You want to elaborate a little bit?
Well, looking back at it now, it actually sounds really stupid. Because it wasn't the fog of war. It wasn't, it wasn't constant combat or the fear or anything else that actually triggered it. It was every other stressor in every major category you can think of. Okay. Suicide comes down to really one of four issues. It's a personal problem, a financial problem, relationship problem, or professional problem. Did I say that right? Professional, relationship, financial, personal. Yeah. Okay. So you've got those four things. You look at anybody that's attempted suicide or anybody that's even contemplated suicide, their problems fall into one of those four key categories every time. So with me, it wasn't combat. I was 19 years old in the Middle East.
And the average age of the combat veteran in Vietnam is 19 years old.
Well, when you say it that way, it makes it sound even worse. Vietnam vets, hey, they were trucking through the jungle, and here I am in Afghanistan going. But no, I mean, I was 19. I had just, I was basically estranged from my family at the time. Never had a good relationship with my mother or my stepfather. I'm kind of the black sheep amongst my siblings. So
I'm
it was
black sheep too, so don't worry.
Okay.
But my first time in combat was 24 when I went to the Gulf.
Okay, so you had a little bit more mental development there. But there was definitely the feeling of isolation. On top of that, I did not listen to my mentors. Now, Lance Corporals, PFCs, privates out there, if you see this, listen to your damn mentors. Went to the first car lot I could find, bought a 1998 Mustang LX 5-speed. Sticker price was $11,000 on a $4,000 car and 18% interest.
You probably didn't have a job. Did you have a job?
No, I was in the Marines.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the first. That was the first thing I did after.
And these people, these especially car dealerships out there, how they're praising, we support our veterans, and then they kill you. They oversticker price the vehicle, and they charge you all this abundance of interest, and just to screw you.
Yep. So, but so I had the financial problem. I mean, I think if I remember right, I was paying close to $500 on a PFC salary for a car that was in storage that I couldn't even drive. I was basically estranged from my family. I was watching everybody else around me get care packages, everything else. I was feeling isolated and alone. And then to kick it off, just before we had deployed, the woman that at the time I was in love with, and I was under the impression she and I were going to get together, a week before we deployed, she invited me to her wedding. So...
Well... That's terrible. But when I was in the Gulf, one of my Marine buddies got a video from his wife.
Oh God! I
screwing another guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know where this is going.
So, and you're right. Those care packages they are refreshing. They're enlightening. I mean, yeah. I look forward to seeing them all the time. And because I like to go around sharing, hey, look what I got, go around sharing with everybody, all my brother Marines. And that was one of the best parts of the day. It took your mind off of a whole lot of BS.
Yup. So, but I mean, right there, I had three of the major stressors. I had financial issues, I had personal issues, I had relationship issues. And those started affecting my performance. I mean, I remember we mustered up for a patrol around Kandahar, and full combat load is 7 magazines of 30 rounds, and 6 of my magazines were dry.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was not even close to paying attention to what was going on. I was showing up late for formations, falling asleep on post, and I was getting my ass.
Those 2 Article 15s right there.
Yeah. And, it got to the point that it was all 4 of those major problems just boiled up on me. And I decided one night, I'm done. If I'm making this much of a mess out of my life, what's the next 60, 70 years going to look like?
So you were going to take your life in Afghanistan?
Full Metal Jacket style. We were living in 500-man tents with the porta-johns right outside.
And how were you planning to do this?
Take my M16, and what I did is I took my M16. I waited till about 3 o'clock in the morning because that was about a 2-hour window where nobody was awake. You had the gear guards at the front of the hooch. Right. Nobody else paying attention. So I went outside in PT gear with my rifle, full magazines, 30 rounds, inserted my mag, put it on 3-round burst, put my muzzle in my mouth.
Why didn't you just, if you were going to take your life, why wouldn't you want to do it in a combat situation? That way your family could have gotten the reaps. You've been more of a hero. You would have gotten all these medals, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, and do it in a combat situation, then just, obviously he took his life type deal. He was eating some MREs, sitting next to the water bowl, you know.
Choke on a cracker?
Yeah, come on.
Honestly, that never entered into my thought. It was just, I'm done. I want out. That was it.
Okay. So what stopped you?
My squad leader, a guy named Corporal Anthony Jones, as generic as that sounds, he'd been paying attention to me for the few weeks leading up to that, and literally ripped the door of the porta-john off trying to get to me.
Oh, wow.
So got a nice little chipped tooth out of the deal. Nice little reminder every time I brush my teeth. But
so what took place afterwards?
Honestly, what took place was exactly what you'd expect. They took my rifle. They took my rounds.
Now you're a liability.
Yeah, put me on 30 days suicide watch. They took me to talk to the chaplain, which that was an awesome conversation until he found out that I was pagan. You know, when he found out that I wasn't Christian, that killed all conversation with him. They sent me to the base psychiatrist.
Navy chaplain.
Yep, Navy chaplain. And the conversation was, well, you understand that suicide is a sin against God. Well, yes, sir, I understand that, but I'm not Christian. I'm a pagan. I'm Wiccan. And he's the one that actually put me on suicide watch. Then it became take his rifle, take his rounds, put him on 30 days suicide watch. And the ironic thing was, like I said, we're living in...
Explain pagan to people that don't know exactly what that religion means.
Paganism is a polytheistic religion. So for anybody out there listening, it has nothing to do with devil worship or Satanism. Paganism it actually comes from a ancient Celtic word meaning outsider. You know, somebody that was uncultured, living out in the boonies or away from civilization.
Was that on your dog tag?
Yep, it was on my dog tag, pagan. And paganism is just a belief in polytheism. Multiple gods is essentially what it is.
Sun god, moon god.
Basically, yeah.
Like the Native Americans?
Native Americans, ancient Greeks, ancient Romans, Druids, Norse pagans, all of those. It's a multi-god style religion, basically. Okay. But he found out that I was pagan, and that's when it turned into take his rifle, take his rounds, put him on 30 days suicide watch. Which
they put you in a straitjacket?
Nope. They sent me right back to the tent with 499 other unsecured rifles.
That's intelligent.
Yeah. Didn't take my knives, didn't take my K-bar, didn't take my bayonet, didn't take nobody was required to have their rifles or rounds locked away. And I'm literally sitting there in the 500-man hooch going, they really don't give a shit. They really don't care if I do this or not.
You're expendable. You do know
exactly. That. Well, I was also a PFC at the time, so yeah, PFC Lafleur. Nobody was more expendable than that. But what actually ended up saving my life, Corporal Jones kept me from killing myself. What saved my life was at the PX there in Kandahar. They'd had the little portable DVD players, the ones with a flip-up screen. And my sergeant had taken me down, so I buy some necessities and everything else. I saw one of those. I'm like, what the hell? Why not? Bought one of those so I wasn't bored, and bought a DVD of Looney Tunes. And I was sitting there. I think it was 2200, somewhere around there. And I'm laying in my rack and I'm watching Looney Tunes, and it was an episode with Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. And I swear to God, I had an epiphany. Is I'm sitting there watching this, and Elmer Fudd, he's constantly chasing Bugs. He's every plan he comes up with, every attempt, Bugs always gets the better of him.
Outsmarts.
Elmer's gun is always going off in his face. And I realized that was me. I was Elmer Fudd, and my gun was constantly going off in my face. I was chasing my Bugs Bunny. I thought I had good plans, and I was making stupid decisions. Buying a car right off base, stupid decision. My sergeant had told me not to. Trying to, trying to spark a relationship with a woman that was with somebody else. Stupid. Waiting for my family to contact me. Stupid. I was doing all of it to myself, and I literally...
Your worst enemy.
Yeah, exactly. I was my own worst enemy. I was my own Elmer Fudd. And I broke down laughing so hard, I fell out of my rack.
Then they thought you were great.
No, actually, the base psychologist said that was the beginning of my recovery.
Oh.
So, but
Okay.
but no, that's literally what saved my life. And coming back from that was, I thought I'd be done with suicide at that point until we got back from Afghanistan, and then a buddy of mine, Lance Corporal Wagner, ended up killing himself in his barracks room.
Oh, wow.
So
And this was where?
this was at Cherry Point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was 4 or 5 months after we got back.
Do you
And
know what sparked that?
same thing that I was going through. He actually found out once we got back that his wife was cheating on him. He didn't get a videotape, but oh god, who was it that sang that song "Murderer"? I don't want to be a murderer.
Is it a reggae song?
Hip hop, I think. But god, it was female vocalist. But we found him in his barracks room listening to that, and that was just on repeat. And we found out that he had financial issues. His wife was cheating on him. He had actually been non-rec for promotion to corporal, and so he was suffering from all that. Then in 2006,
How long was he in Afghanistan? Was that his first tour?
first tour, both of us.
How long was he over there for?
Full 7-month deployment. It was a month and a half going over on the boat, month and a half coming back, and about 4 months in country.
Did he have to return fire?
I don't know. He actually got put with a different detail than I
How
was
about you?
several times.
Okay.
So, but 2000, that was in 2005. Yeah, that was at the end of 2004. 2005, 2006, nothing happened. And in 2007, my mentor at VMMT 204, Sergeant McGarity, hung himself at his garage.
Oh, wow.
So it was after my first suicide attempt. It was
Now you start seeing your comrades doing the same thing.
it was one thing after another. So I decided something had to change, and I became the only enlisted suicide prevention officer in the Marine Corps. Other than me, they were all first lieutenants or captains.
Okay.
And I decided, you know what? The majority of statistics are enlisted Marines. Worse, they're enlisted Marines between the ages of 18 and 30. Worse, they're enlisted Marines between the ages of 18 and 30 between the ranks of E1 and E5. Why the hell is an officer trying to connect with E1s and E5s?
You can't.
Exactly, you can't.
Unless you were one.
I'll always listen to a Mustang. I will say that. But I decided something had to change, and so I started getting involved with the suicide prevention program. I started leading the briefs, built a suicide prevention team at VMMT 204, officers, staff NCOs, non-NCOs. Started doing monthly training for my team. Got called up to Quantico to help with the Never Leave a Marine Behind program, which was the new suicide prevention program. Still corny as hell, but a little bit more in depth. I helped the TAPS program with suicide prevention, the Marine Corps Times.
Was this suicide attempt in Afghanistan? Is that in your SRB or your medical? It is.
Yep, SRB and medical record.
Okay.
Non-rec for 6 months after that on returning from Afghanistan, and full record in my medical record.
So let me ask you this real quick, just real fast, because I've heard this being said before, is how, like, and both of you correct me if I'm wrong, so this is just stuff I've heard, is that, as you're going through basic training and then all the way up, it's basically you are constantly being told, whichever branch you're in, that if you have suicidal thoughts, if you're thinking about doing something like that, that there's always help. Like, reach out to somebody. But I've also heard from a lot of people that have served that say, yeah, okay, that's fine. They tell you that, and that's probably a legal thing that they have to do. But as soon as, let's just say you were a Christian, right? And they didn't blow you off. And that's unfortunate they did that. But you go see the base chaplain, everybody finds out about it, whether you tried to commit suicide or not. And good luck ever getting promoted.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, your military career at that point, if you want to elevate, is over.
Yeah. I mean, I know from my era, that's true. Steve?
Yeah, you screwed yourself or screwed the pooch, as they say.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what we get told is, call somebody, go, get yourself checked out, get the help you need.
Right.
And then you're completely ostracized. And that was one of the first things that I wanted to fix.
You would have did much better in combat when they say cease fire and you just fired one more time and killed that individual. You would have done much better with that one if you then trying to take your own life, because that one you have an argument, you could justify that.
I didn't hear that order.
You see, you could, but when you turn on yourself to take your own life, what are the justifications for that? I mean, you could say, well, I got all these problems, and then I felt I had no out just to take my life. But you're going to be in a situation that's going to probably be 10 times worse than that. What happens if you're a POW? What happened if you got shot in the leg, laying in your own blood, and you got the enemy coming?
No, that's.
I'm gonna dig into this a little bit further, just from the civilian point of view, because like I said, I didn't serve, but this is something I'm really passionate about. Obviously, I could give you my take on how, if we had President Jonas, God forbid that ever happens. I mean, I have my own theory on how combat should work. It should be limited, but basically, in a nutshell, you're not there to play God. I don't want to invade another country. I don't want to go to war. But if I have to go to war, basically, my theory is kill them all, let God sort it out. Don't try to play God.
No, I'm on the same page.
But anyway, so fast forward to suicide prevention. Basically, so based on what I just said about basically your career is over if you do seek help. If I say, is there a way that we can actually prevent that type of thing from happening? There's going to be pushback from a lot of people that are going to basically say, well, we can't have that in the military. You can't have people because how many fake people are going to say, yeah, I'm thinking about committing suicide just to get out of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So is there a way that basically before you even enlist, there could be some type of screening process to see the mental stability of somebody?
Well, to answer that, I'd have to ask you a question. How much snow can get packed in before the avalanche lets go?
Right.
Because I've been working on a theory, and I call it the avalanche effect.
Right.
Now, what sets off an avalanche?
Pretty much anything.
Vibration,
noise,
or melt.
The weight of a single snowflake.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's the weight of a single snowflake getting shifted that causes an avalanche. Whether it's by vibration, whether it's by melt, another snowfall, whatever it is, one snowflake will set off an avalanche that can kill thousands.
Right.
Suicide works the same way. Now, if you think about that, imagine a person's problems are snowstorms. That first snowstorm comes through, beginning of winter.
Right.
Get a bit of a snowstorm. Trees are kind of white. Nothing really sticks yet. It's not a big deal. Second storm comes through. Okay, now it's a little bit wider. There's some frost sticking to the ground this time. Right. Third one comes through. Fourth one, fifth one. Okay, now the snow's starting to deepen up a little bit. Now it's getting kind of thick. It's hard to walk through. You hit the wrong tree, or you make the wrong sound. You're gonna have snow falling out of the trees. Get a couple more storms come through, and then finally you get one little flurry that comes through, and you've got this one snowpack that's just sitting on a ledge. Right. And it just has that one snowflake that comes down, hits it, And now you've got a cascade coming down. Right. Suicide works the same way. It's the same way. It's the same way for people psychologically. Is you've got that one problem. Well, that's not a big problem. It's not a big deal. Then you got the second problem. It's still not a big deal. Third problem. Okay, now it's getting kind of hard to carry it. Fourth, fifth, sixth. All of a sudden, you get that one final problem coming in. Hey, honey, power bill's late. And that's what it comes down to. But if you think about it like an avalanche, if you missed one storm, that one snowflake wouldn't have fallen. If you had one day where it warmed up a little bit and you had some of that snow run off, avalanche wouldn't have happened. If you find one problem, or you find one solution to that line of problems, you take some of that weight off. Yeah. And that's the mistake that we make with suicide prevention. That's why an early screening process, we wouldn't really be able to do it because
there hasn't been enough snowfalls yet.
Yeah,
to create that avalanche potential, basically.
Yeah, well, like Steve just said with the pack, the pack at the beginning of the conversation. Oh, that's 60-pound pack. That's light, and I'm sitting here going, I ain't humped a pack in 6 years. You can keep that 60 pounds. Right. Yeah. So what's going to cause the avalanche for Steve is going to be different than me. The avalanche for me is going to be different from you.
Right. Well, you know something. When you have a police officer, okay. When a police officer discharges their weapon, okay, they have to go through some type of psychological introduction back on the force. Yeah. Especially when they use it and they kill somebody. You have to go through the psychological thing, and you have a 6 months administrative leave to make sure that you're mentally competent to go back on the street. Yeah. But then when you have a veteran and in combat, there is no 6 month wait. No, you're in combat today, you're in combat tomorrow, you're in combat for 6 months, you're in combat for 8 months, you're in combat for a year, you come back to stateside, and sometimes you don't even have breathing room, you're there for 2 weeks, and then you're back out again in combat. Yep. Right? And nobody thinks about the repercussion of the mind. They don't think about putting you through some type of psychological evaluation to make sure that you can go back for that next tour, or even have, when they build their bases up and they're formulated and they're structured, or have a counselor on base so you could talk to find out where your mental capabilities are at that time. Yeah, they don't have that in the military.
No, we don't
at all,
and that's part of the problem.
At all. So when you come here and you leave the military, and that's why we got this veterans court for just that reason, treatment instead of incarceration. But sometimes for some vets, they're too far beyond that. They're not going to be on drugs and alcohol. They're going to be on beat your ass and kill your ass. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So they're going to skip the drug and alcohol part and go right to beat and kill. So, and a lot of people don't have that. And I remember I was sitting here with the district attorney, Steve Wolfson, and he goes, veterans are no different than anybody else that does a crime. And yes and no. And I could have went after it and say, no, that's not true. Steve, you haven't served. So how the hell do you really know? How many times have you discharged your weapon into somebody? How many times have you discharged your weapon at all? How many times have you went on top of somebody and you beat them so hard that your hand is all bloody? How many times have you done that? And I didn't want to, because I didn't want to like scare them away. But the fact of the matter is, veterans are much different than the general population. Because the general population don't go to combat. The general population go to work and they go to their 9-to-5 jobs and they get stuck in traffic and they want to know if this French fries is going to really mess up with their waistline. That's the general population.
Going back to what we were saying this morning about PTSD.
So in respect to our military, they are different than the general public. Some of them, a lot of our military folks come from deprived households. A lot of them come from households that are underfunded, underprivileged, and there's a lot of military people that come from a silver spoon society, and they just want to make up their mind and go in the military despite what mom and dad says to go to college. So, but when you go into combat and you squeeze that trigger and you do take a life, and you got to do it on a consistent basis every single day for months at a time, you are a different person. So yeah, you are different than the general population, and people, you know, public prosecutors need to take that into consideration when they prosecute cases, and judges need to take that in consideration when they hand the verdict down, because you are different. And that's not that you want to be different, you just are different, man, because it's like my son, okay, and I could tell you this story. He went into the Army, okay, and I think he was in Houston somewhere to be a combat medic, okay? And he calls me up. He goes, "Hey, Dad, I got approached by a couple of recruiters from the 101st, all right, and a couple from the Army Rangers, and they want to recruit me to go into their specialized force, right? And once I go into their specialized force and I graduate, they want to send me to Afghanistan for a year." So I said to him, I said, "You know, that's funny." I said, "You joined the Army, why? Tell me why you joined the Army, Steve." His name is Steve too, right? I said, "Tell me why you joined the Army." He goes, "And not the Marine Corps." He goes, "Well, I joined the Army because I didn't want to be as crazy as you." So you want to go into the Army's specialized, what do? 101st Rangers, what do? They seek, destroy, kill if they have to, right?
Yep.
All in that order. Seek, destroy, kill. But when seek, rescue is always in there, right? They accomplish the mission no matter what the situation is. They accomplish the mission. We don't even know what mission they're accomplishing. They don't even know what mission they're going to. They don't even know what country they're going to until they actually get there, because they don't want nothing to leak out, right?
Yeah.
So they go there, they do what they need to do, and a lot of that times that means take a life. So I said, so do you understand, once you take a life, it changes your whole demeanor, your whole look on humanity has now changed for the rest of your life. If you think before you were all this huggy, hi, how you doing? Yeah. You take a life, now you're a serious mother effer, right? The way you look at people is not like how you used to look at them before you take a life. Because before, you used to look at people as more of a compassionate and more of a sympathetic way and more of a loving way. But once you take a life, there's some people you look at like, that mother needs to go. You know, that guy needs to be wiped off this earth. That guy over there, he needs to just be destroyed. And that's how you start looking at it. I'm not saying that goes along for everybody, but I'm saying the majority of the crowd, that's exactly the avenue they take, you know.
And we have to. I mean, from day one of boot camp, basic training, or anything else, we're getting hardened. We are getting hardened against the things that civilians never have to encounter. Killing somebody, and I love it when you hear it in movies, that it takes something out of you. No, it doesn't take something out of you. It reveals something that was there. Killing somebody is the easiest thing in the world. It's coming back from that place and being able to look at people with the same eyes that you left with that can't happen. Something is revealed that you didn't even know you had. And if you want to survive in that place, if you want to survive in that place in your mind that killing a person puts you in, you have to learn how to harden yourself to everything else. And just being trained to go to that place puts us in a different caste. I mean, I remember third kid, and he was a kid. The first 2 times I was in combat didn't really bother me. The third one sent me spiraling. We were coming up from Kandahar up to Fob Ripley. And there was a section around the mountains that we had to skirt. And basically what it was is like, if you imagine the cap, coming around the cap is basically a sheer cliff. And we were coming around, and the lead Humvee just break down right there. And I mean, you got a sheer cliff on this side, you got a sheer cliff on this side, and you're sitting there, and it's like, okay, this is a bad spot to be in. And we ended up taking fire from the cliff up above. And I come around from the side of the 7-ton, and I brought my rifle up, and seeing this kid, and he couldn't have been any 16 years old, maybe, if that. And I'm looking up, and I come up, and I bring it through. I'm looking at this kid through my ACOG, and all I see is his AK pointed down at me. And then I just see his hand comes off the pistol grip as I squeeze the trigger. And I see his hand come up like, I know he's going for this. I can see it playing out in my mind, the way his hand was coming off, the way his left hand was pulling away, the muzzle moving across as I'm squeezing the trigger. And I just watch him disappear back over the berm. That's never sat right with me. The first 2, I don't even think about. When we start talking about Afghanistan, we start talking about combat, we start talking about PTSD, things like that. That's the one that I remember. And then I look at my son. I've got 2 boys. My oldest Tristan is 12. He's a couple of years away from being that kid's age. And the thing that you have to harden yourself to when it comes to it is, I didn't just eliminate who he was. When I pulled that trigger, I didn't just eliminate everything that he had already done or the mistakes he had made. I eliminated everything that he might have been. Yeah. I took away everything that he might become. I took away everything that his kids might become. I took away an entire lineage of possibilities.
But sometimes you got to look at the glass being half full.
Yeah, I'm here, and my possibilities are still here.
You might have saved a whole bunch of lives by taking that one life, because he might have killed a whole bunch of people after that day.
Yeah. And when it comes to suicide prevention in the military, that's the door that we're knocking on.
He might have become the next bin Laden. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
Yeah.
And I remember when I was in the Corps, there was one thing that we were told we couldn't have, which was a conscience. Yep. Because if you have a conscience, your conscience will eat you up and kill you. Yep. Your conscience will make you take your life.
Yeah, that's what we have to harden ourselves against.
But it's your conscience. But now I have a conscience.
We'll go to what you were saying with the DA, the judges, attorneys, and everything else. We're taught to turn that conscience off. They don't teach us how to turn it back on. Yeah. And I mean, you see that with suicide. You'll just try to make sure we stay on point with it. Is, well, how could you do that to your family? Doesn't that eat at you? Don't you feel bad about that? I don't fucking feel anything at all. That's the problem. I don't feel anything about driving my car into a brick wall at 130. I don't feel anything about hanging myself in a garage. I don't feel anything about slitting my wrist in a bathtub or swallowing a bullet or any of the other myriad of ways that people commit suicide. We're not taught to turn that off. Listen, like I said, living on TikTok the way I do, that Rocky 2 skit, that Rocky 2 clip, you don't just turn it off. You can't. We have to harden ourselves against things that most people never have to encounter. And then dealing with suicide prevention, we have to learn how to break that damn door down. And psychologically, that's dangerous in the first place. I studied psychology at UNC at Chapel Hill before I got out of the Marines, and breaking through those kind of psychological barriers can be damaging in and of itself. And so you got mentors sitting back saying, Corporal, you can come talk to me. If you're feeling that way, you can come talk to me. He's offering to break down that door, but he's not a psychologist. No. He's not a psychiatrist. He's not a sociologist.
And he probably has his own demons as well.
Yeah, he's got his own shit to deal with on top of that. So I mean, when it comes to suicide, in the military, and when it comes to suicide prevention in the military, and kind of in the civilian world too, we focus so much on awareness. We've lost all sight of prevention. But how can you prevent when you can't break down the door to get into that room with that person to pull them back out in the first place without causing more damage or without fighting your own damn demons?
So what are the signs people need to look for?
Anything is a sign. And I used to cut this portion out of my suicide prevention briefs because you hear I'm giving away, he's giving away all his stuff. He's drinking all the time. He's always tired. He's late for work. He has no interest in his hobbies. He's estranged from his family. He's closed off. He's quiet. Pull out the damn dictionary and go through emotions, and that could be that. Any change in a person's perspective or persona is a sign for suicide. Anything can be. You've got a podcast tomorrow night. Call up your crew. Hey guys, we're not doing it tonight. You might be suicidal. There's no way unless we're willing to dig. There's no way for us to know until you either show up the next day or we get the phone call from the coroner's office. There's no way to know. The only way we can know is if we're actually paying attention. And to do that, we actually have to get involved, and that's something most people don't want to do.
So if you catch someone that's right in the middle of taking their lives, what are you supposed to do?
Get them out of that situation first thing. How any means necessary. If you catch a person in their garage tying a noose, run that garage door up so the entire freaking world can see him while you're on the phone. While you're getting on the phone with 911, you see him there with a gun. Most people that are suicidal don't want to take another life. So if you're suicidal, okay, hey, that's fine. But guess what? If you want to kill yourself, you're going to kill me first.
You can't be combatant either when you do this.
By all means.
Because that's combative. A trigger.
No, that's actually a common misconception. That was, God, what was her name? She was a clinical psychologist in 2004. I did my college dissertation on her. Marianne something. I can't remember her name. The best way, she did like a 3-year study on this. The best way to prevent suicide is a shock and awe. Is basically what she did with her study was if I come out to you and I go, hey man, you doing all right? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? You got some problems you want to talk about? No, I'm fine, man. Everything's cool. No, I'd never think about hurting myself. There's a psychological trigger that goes with that. It's, you asked me specifically, am I thinking of hurting myself? The creative center of the brain kicks in, which is ironic you brought that up. No, I'm not thinking of hurting myself. I'm not thinking of slashing my wrists or, hanging myself. I'm thinking about blowing my fucking brains out. That's not going to hurt. You can look at me with that mentality, bold face, tell me, no, you're not thinking about hurting yourself. And it's completely true, but you are thinking about killing yourself. There's no psychological shock factor to that. Now, if I come out and go, hey, Steve, you thinking about killing yourself? And I'm face to face with you, there's that moment. If it's something you don't want me to know, there's going to be that momentary processing pause. It's part of the autonomic nervous system.
Where's this conversation coming from?
Yeah, it's how the hell did you know? Or two, oh shit, somebody actually cares enough to notice. Mm-hmm. Come out, be combative. Don't sit back and say, oh, I'll wait till he's willing to talk. No, by the time he's ready to come out and talk, it's too damn late. Get in their face, be combative. You're not going to trigger them. If I come out and ask you, are you thinking about killing yourself? I'm not going to trigger suicidal thoughts in you if you don't have any in the first place. And if you already have them, I'm not triggering them. I want you to tell me, are they there? And then it comes down to, okay, get you removed from that situation. Now we've prevented you, and this is where suicide prevention falls apart. Now we've prevented suicide in that instance. You're going to go spend 72 hours in a psych ward. They're going to prescribe you medication. Then they're going to release you onto your own recognizance. Now what? How do we watch you 24 hours a day? You go home. You live by yourself. You were going to blow your head out 4 days, or blow your head off 4 days ago. How do I stop you from doing it now? And this is where actually understanding problem solving comes in. And this is where suicide prevention falls apart, because we don't understand the avalanche effect of those 4 key issues. Those personal problems, financial problems, relationship problems, professional problems. We don't understand how to fix those because Americans have stopped being, and this started in 1983. You can actually trace this back into the educational system where kids stopped being taught problem solving skills. Steve, you need an extra $1,000 by next month. How are you going to get it? You got 2 weeks. How are you going to come up with an extra $1,000?
Are you really asking me this question?
Yeah, if you needed, just hypothetical, we're gonna role play cleanly. We're gonna role play, okay? You're on the verge of losing your house. You're about to lose your truck. Your wife's completely pissed off at you. Kids' college tuition isn't paid, and if you don't come up with another $1,000 by the end of next week, your wife's leaving. You're gonna lose the house. Your kid's gonna get kicked out of college. How are you gonna come up with that $1,000?
Well, you could refinance your house for one.
Okay, there's one, but what if you don't own a home? What if you're in an apartment?
You could ask a buddy for 2.
Ask a buddy, okay.
You could go take some odd jobs for 3.
Okay, odd jobs. Now that one I want to come back to, because this one actually ties into economics. But okay, odd jobs.
You could get lucky at the doggone slot machine for 4.
Okay. Okay, so right there.
You could start cutting back on your spending for 5. Become conservative with your money.
5 answers right off the top of the bat. But if you go talk to somebody that's dealing with financial issues right now that's suicidal, they won't have a clue what to do. And I love that
because your mind races, though.
Yeah,
that's why.
We're not.
And you can't catch up with it. You can't see it because there's so many different flashes that goes on in your head, and it's so fast you don't see it. That's why a lot of doctors now are prescribing THC. Because it slows down the mind, and that way you could start seeing, and you could have some type of clarity, and you could find your zen, and you could relax.
Yep.
And the most important thing you have to do is breathe. And there's a lot of people that just don't know how to breathe. They take breathing for granted until they can't breathe anymore, right? But if you learn how to breathe, it helps to heal the body a lot better. That's why they say, inhale. Exhale.
2 seconds in, 4 seconds out.
And a lot.
That's actually what it is. That was invented in 1968 with the advent of the suicide prevention.
A lot of yoga instructors tell you to do that. Yeah. So I think the best thing of anybody that wants to was thinking about taking their life is to start meditating and start breathing and start taking some type of yoga, start working out and exercising the body and watching what you eat, because that plays a role too. You know, what you eat. They always say you are what you eat, right?
Yeah.
Watch what you eat and just be more active and just start surrounding yourself with people that you know that care about you and start leaving those opportunists, throwing them off the fucking cliff. Excuse my language. I was promised I wasn't going to start cursing the show anymore. I just leave that for my guests to do. But
I've been trying to watch it.
No, my guest, a lawyer that I like. He goes, you just cut out the cursing on the show, and you'll be a lot more credible. So I said, what the fuck are you talking about?
His name wasn't Stubbs, was it?
No.
Okay. No, I know a lawyer named Stubbs, and that's the way he talks.
So I decided to kind of cut out the cursing, but my guests could curse anytime they want. I don't care, because I'm like living vicariously through them.
Oh, we're gonna have fun. No, I'm just kidding. We'll keep it PG-13.
Okay, well, but we've talked a lot, and I think we're running out of time now.
Has it already been an hour?
Oh, it's way past an hour.
Oh wow! Yeah, I can keep going on suicide.
But are you doing this? I know you did it in the military in the Corps, but are you doing this now as a civilian?
Yep. Right now, I'm paired up with AFSP, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I actually just started working with them. Believe it or not, I'd never heard of them until about 9 months ago.
Right.
Never even heard of them. I've been trying to do some outreach with a lot of the local churches, but because of COVID, they don't want anybody coming in and speaking or anything like that. It's just strictly their congregation and them. But I do a lot of one-on-ones through TikTok. I try to do a lot of motivational videos.
Do you have a website or anything like that?
Not yet. I am the most computer illiterate person you will ever meet.
But yet you're on TikTok.
That platform's already built. I don't have to build it myself. But no, I am on Facebook. You can find me there under Murphy Verititis. Twitter, Murphy Verititis. TikTok, Professor Murphy. And anybody that they need an ear or they want to find a solution, I'll go one-on-one with them.
Jim, you have anything for Sergeant Lafleur?
No, other than this is a very important issue, and thank you for taking it on, and also thank you very much for your service. It's one of those things that suicide is. I just want to leave with this. I thought it was pretty interesting that the base chaplain said that about. Look, me personally, I am a Christian, but at the same time, that's probably the last thing I would say to somebody.
You still want to do the Christian thing is to help,
right? Yeah,
your fellow man out.
It's one of those things where it's depending on how well I know the person, because unfortunately, suicide is something that came up in my life. I've never personally thought about committing suicide, but a close loved one of mine did. Yeah, that quite a few times.
I'm going to leave that one alone.
But anyway, so it's interesting because I made the same mistake that Chaplain made, where I said, well, if you commit suicide, then you break your covenant with God, and that means that, you're automatically going to go to hell. And the look on that person's face was, and as soon as I saw the look and reaction, I immediately apologized and called the suicide prevention line right there.
Oh God! Don't get me started on the suicide,
because I just didn't know.
I've called that line.
Yeah, I just didn't know what to do, and it was one of those things. So thank you for taking this on, and also something like that. You got to be careful if you're not, like you said, if you're not a psychologist and stuff. Don't try to be.
Yeah.
Before we go, you're talking about the suicide prevention line. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
Me too, actually.
I will never tell anybody not to call the suicide prevention line, but I have never heard a more clinically sterile greeting over the phone. I called the National Suicide Prevention line 6 months ago. Not because I was suicidal, but I'm actually working on a book on suicide prevention, and I wanted to know, what their response was.
Right.
I called them 9 times. It wasn't just once and then. No, it was a series of days every day. Yeah. Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'd be glad to speak with you, but first I have to ask, do you have a weapon or a gun in your possession? What the? Okay, I understand you guys have to take stock of the situation, but if you're trying to make it personable and get a person to open up to you, why are you trying to sound like Commander Data from Star Trek? I have never heard a more emotionless greeting. I mean, call for your bank balance. You'll get more emotion. I promise. The suicide prevention hotline, the suicide. You think I'm joking?
No.
Go ahead.
The reason why I'm laughing, honestly, this is a very serious topic, but it's funny that you say that because I've heard that from a couple people.
Double charging you? Oh, I'm so sorry. What could we do to make it better?
I mean, hi, my name's Bert. I'd be glad to speak to you, but first I have to ask, do you have a gun in your possession? I'm going to make somebody pull the trigger talking to him like that. I mean, but the last, because I know we are out of time, the last thing I'll say when it comes to suicide prevention, unless we decide to do a sequel, suicide prevention is all about problem solving. If you solve the problems, you stave off the avalanche. And there is no problem that doesn't, unless we're talking trigonometry and advanced algebra, there's no problem that doesn't have an answer. It may not be an answer you like.
Right.
You're having marital problems. Divorce might not be the answer you like. But every solution does have a problem. Or every problem has a solution. Sorry, I said that backwards. It's suicide prevention. Problem solving, find the solution. We won't just bring suicides down to zero or bring suicides down. We will drop them to zero, I promise.
Mr. Lafleur, could you look into the camera, and this is your closing out. Could you, whatever you want to say. But before that, I want to thank you for coming on the program.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you for your service to our country.
You too. I think you got me beat.
And look at the camera and tell folks whatever you want to say and your point of contact. Oh, and a point of contact if you want to give one out.
All right. So guys, since it's been suicide prevention, like I just said, there's no problem that doesn't have a solution. It may not be the solution you like, but there is one. I can promise you. Find your purpose, find passion, find the solutions to the problems, and suicide is never going to be a concern for you or anybody else around you. I can be reached, like I said, either Professor Murphy 21 on TikTok. That's where I do most of my personal content. Murphy Veritatis on Twitter, Murphy Veritatis on Facebook, or the Lafleur Library at gmail.com. And I'll make sure that you guys have a correct spelling of my last name.
Go ahead and spell it.
TheLafleurLibray at gmail.com.
Well, thank you so much. Burton Lafleur.
Lafleur.
Folks, that's Burton Lafleur, United States Marine, combat veteran, was talking about suicide prevention. This is a serious topic. It concerns a lot of people, not just our veterans. There's a lot of our school kids and that are getting bullied in school, and they're doing it as well. So we need to watch them. And a lot of parents are losing loved ones through COVID or going through some financial hell right now or losing their home or whatever the case might be. Go and reach out to somebody that you trust and that you would listen to. And have them talk you out of this thing because it's no way to live. And if you having some financial problems, you probably want to talk to a CPA or file for BK and get out from under it. If you having a marital problem, you probably want to let her go, and just move on. Or if you love her that much, you probably want to talk it out and have some type of compromise and go to a mediator. If you have loved ones coming back from or coming out of the military or still in the military, you probably want to sit down and find out what happened with them and how they lived their daily life while they were in combat and have them talk to you, because sometimes the best way to stop somebody from doing this is for them to talk out their troubles. And sometimes that works, or at least you know what type of direction you need to go to kind of facilitate and help them out. This is Steve Sanson, Jim Jonas with Veterans in Politics. Until next time.